Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Alyx King and Carlos Balasquire. It is Tuesday, November the 13th, 2018. It's 4 p.m. New York time. That's 1 p.m. Los Angeles time, 9 p.m. London time, and adding a new wrinkle into it, it's 8 a.m. Sydney, Australia time. So hello, everybody around the world. Thanks for joining us. We are, of course, live streaming on the Law of Attraction Changed My Life group in addition to our regular podcast streaming. So whatever way you're listening to us, thank you for tuning in today. We are going to explore another terrific topic that Alyx and Carlos came up with. I've been asking them to come up with topics because as members of the millennial generation, I knew they were going to come up with topics that I wouldn't even think of that would be really relevant to their generation, and they're doing exactly that. So guys, thank you for the topics you're coming up with, because they're really good ones. And this week we're talking about anxiety, and I have actually heard a number of millennials I know using that word fairly frequently. Anxiety does seem to be big. Why is it so big? Alyx, I'm going to go to you first on this. Why is anxiety such a big topic these days?
I think with the way the world is now, it's just, it's all too much for us, and we don't know how to process things. So it comes out as anxiety. I think that's what's going on.
Well, it's understandable, especially in the age of rapidly accelerating technology and the whole world operating in a different way. I mean, it's like all the old ground rules for how you do things just don't apply anymore. So I can understand that, how that would create some anxiety. Yeah. How about you, Carlos? What's your take on it? Why is there so much? Why is anxiety such a big issue these days?
Well, first of all, I feel like there's and I know Alyx has talked to me before that she, this is something that she deals with. I talked to you guys again about my brother who deals with it. But then I also feel that there's a lot of self-diagnosis going on as well. That's why I feel like people throw around anxiety, the term, kind of loosely. So that's probably what you're hearing a lot is, oh, I have anxiety, and a lot of the times it's stress. Oh, it's self-created. You didn't do what you're supposed to, you procrastinated, and now you're thinking all these things. Well, that's not necessarily anxiety, right? That's, stress, right? And it still should be taken care of. But I think what we are going to go into more today is kind of just, the real kind of anxiety. And I think that what you mentioned has, it's a good point too, Walt, just the way that we communicate, the amount of stimuli out there that we interact with daily, and how is our kind of mind and our bodies adapting and changing to these new environments. I think you look at human history, we mutate or we change or we adapt, physically and mentally to our surroundings. But now where we come from an age where, in my lifetime, you go from landline to now we have a computer in our hand. How does a human body or mind account for such a drastic change in such a short period of time? And I think because, to Alex's point, maybe we're not ready or able to process those things, that might have some contributing factors to it.
It's interesting you should mention that too, because I'm thinking back to when I was growing up. When I was growing up, it was the 1960s, 1970s. And during that time period, it was a time of transition. I mean, that was the Vietnam War, that was Pentagon Papers, Watergate. It was the late 60s with the 60s movement, San Francisco, all that stuff. So there was a lot of change going on. But by comparison today, the change was relatively mild. And I remember my parents talking about how, and not just my parents, aunts and uncles, all the adults that I knew talking about how fast society was moving. Well, by today's standards, society in that day was moving at a snail's pace. But compared to where it had been, say, 30 or 40 years before that, it was so much faster. So there's this huge acceleration that's been going on for a few generations now. And I can see where that creates anxiety because, I mean, in my lifetime, like you said, I mean, I started off learning on a typewriter, and now I type on a computer, and that's just like miles apart.
Right.
It's not even close,
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
So Alex,
no, go ahead.
I was gonna, sorry, I was gonna cross over here, but I was gonna ask, um, what is it, kind of like, what is your story? Like, how have you, kind of used, or have dealt with it in a, in a positive way, or maybe you're still dealing with it. I mean, obviously you're still dealing with it, but I don't know what I'm asking. Basically, yeah, basically, like, what is it like? I guess, like, I'm sure, people are curious, or maybe they think that they may have, or they kind of throw around the term, but they've never gone to a doctor or something. What is it
Right.
like, from your perspective, as far as seeing the world through those eyes?
Well, your question brings me to a story that happened recently. I believe it was Katy Perry who had tweeted something about having anxiety before a show, and all she does is take a deep breath and it goes away. And people like lost their mind. People with real anxiety like lost their minds. They were like, that's not real anxiety. That's, nervousness before, that's stage fright. That's not, you can't just blow away anxiety with a deep breath. Like, it just doesn't
Right.
work like that. So yeah, it sucks. It takes over your life. You can't do the things you want to do. You can try to put your mind to things, and it just doesn't work out like you want it to, because your palms are sweaty, your heart's racing, you feel like you're having a heart attack, but it's not actually a heart attack. It's like a mental heart attack. So
Right.
it's rough.
Well, let's
Yeah,
define
I
the
mean,
term
I
here
think that's,
before we go further, because I think you guys are both making some good points about how anxiety isn't always anxiety. So let's define the term. What's anxiety? I mean, if we had to put a package around it so we know what we're talking about, how do you define the word anxiety in this context?
yeah, that's actually what I was gonna, great minds think alike.
There you
That's
go.
no, that's what I was, because I was like, hey, we keep talking about it, but I would say, and this is just a layman's term explanation, but I feel like the difference is, from what Alex is talking about, is, when there's reasons for you to be stressed, that's a normal human reaction, right? If you
Yes.
are about to go on stage in front of 50,000 people, that's a normal human reaction. If you are nervous for a job interview, or there's a lot of stuff on your plate and you're stressed, that's a normal human reaction. I think that anxiety comes, and a lot of people don't understand this until they've experienced it, but anxiety comes from, no external reason, right? You could be having, externally, your life could be completely great. Like, you have a great job, you have a girlfriend, you're making good money. Like, really, you could just be firing on all cylinders, but your mind still takes you to a place where,
You're in fear.
in fear, right? And it could be, and it manifests differently in different people. For some
Yeah.
people, it's fear that their family, something's going to happen to a family member, or
Yep.
that they're going to lose their job. Nobody likes them at work, and it's a barrage of negative feelings and negative thoughts that can't necessarily just be stopped, and also don't come from a rational place. And
Right.
so I think that's the distinction is, hey, if I feel like this, but there's a reason, usually, you can kind of correlate those things. But when sometimes there is no logical reason for the way you're feeling, or those thoughts maybe that are coming into your mind. But I'll let Alex kind of elaborate if she wants to on that.
No, you hit the nail right on the head. It is irrational fear. Like with mine, I have generalized anxiety, social anxiety, and also anxiety disorder, and stemming off of that, agoraphobia. So
Right.
the agoraphobia is an irrational fear of public places and lots of people. So, and I wasn't always like this. That's the thing. So it randomly just slowly snowballed for me into not leaving the house for 10 years. And that's where I am now. It's not a good feeling.
You say it evolved
Yeah,
over
no,
time. When you say it evolved over time, can you point to? Do you notice anything from your life that said, "Yeah, that was an indicator right there. I could see the transition happening because of X." Do you have an X like that?
I remember one time I was walking in the grocery store, and I just started panicking. And I didn't realize it was a panic attack then because I didn't know what a panic attack was. So I was like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. I'm dizzy. I can't breathe. I don't know what's going on. So I just had to leave the grocery store. Like, I just dropped all my stuff and walked out of the grocery store. And then from then on, I was like, I can't go to grocery stores because this is what'll happen.
Right.
So it's also
how old were you, Alex, when you first
24.
24. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting, and I think that when that happens, you're right. I think what you've been through before in life either prepares you or you're not prepared, right? And so, like, in that instance, when you're like, that's the only logical kind of connection you can make. It's like, hey, this happened in the grocery store, therefore I'm not going to grocery stores, right? Like, that's
right.
Because how else? Again, you don't know what it's going on.
Yeah.
So what other logical kind of connection you can make? But like to my point earlier, that's again in her mind, because that's her reality, that's her perception. But looking from outside in, oh, those things aren't necessarily connected, right? But again, you don't know that. It's irrational. It's this fear. It's like,
exactly.
I don't know.
It's irrational.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
The thing that I'm thinking about where anxiety is concerned is I've never had a condition about, somebody saying, well, you suffer from anxiety, but I have had on at least one occasion an experience with a panic attack, and it happened shortly after I met my wife. I actually thought I was having a heart attack. That's how panicked I was. And they checked me out at the hospital. Amazing. By the way, when you go to a hospital with chest complaints about chest pains, it's amazing how fast you get in there. I tell you, I'm not recommending it, but I'm just saying, whoa, it was fast lane. But they checked me out and everything checked out okay. And there was actually a side story that went along with it, because as I'm waiting for them to come back with results, I'm sitting there all wired up, and I've got, I can see the monitors in front of me. And so my wife said, well, she was my girlfriend at that point, and she said, let's see if we can play with the monitors. Can you make your breathing go faster or slower? Well, obviously I could do that. Can you change your pulse rate? So I'd start playing around with my pulse rate. And can you change your blood pressure? Can you change the dials? And you can, which is kind of fun. It was also really kind of a neat way to regain control, because I walked into that hospital feeling out of control, and now I was regaining control. But that's the side story. The main reason I brought this story up is because I do recall that when it was going on, well, first of all, one of the factors was I was in this new relationship, and within the relationship, things were moving kind of quickly. And I recall that when it started to happen, it's like my brain kind of turned off for a bit. Like there was stuff it was trying to process, and it just couldn't process it anymore. And once I got past the incident, then my brain started processing again. So I bring that up to ask you, is that what it's like for you? Is it like your brain stops processing? That's what I'm wondering.
It does. It does stop processing. Like, you're sitting there, and I could be, like, most of the day I'm watching TV. Like, that's just what I do. So my brain's off most of the time. And then all of a sudden, I get this flush feeling, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Every time it happens, and it's, like I said, it's been 10 years. It's still a surprise to me. So I'm like, why am I breathing heavy? Why am I getting dizzy? Why? And then I'm like, okay, it's a panic attack. Calm down. And, you just got to walk yourself back.
Right.
But yeah, your brain does shut off for a second, because all your other functions are over processing. So your brain's like not in it.
Now, I have no medical training, so take this theory with a grain of salt, okay? But I do have a theory. I have a theory about what goes on here, because it ties in with something I know about what's called the ARAS, often called the RAS. It's at the brain stem. It's like at the base of the brain, part of what they call the reptile brain or the monkey brain or whatever you want to call it, where all the fight or flight stuff takes place. And what the ARAS does is it has a number of different functions, but one of the functions is to act as a filter. So, and this is something that actually comes up in law of attraction discussions. You have, for instance, if you've ever bought a car, like the last car I got was a Toyota Camry. and I got a beige one or a tan one, depending on how you want to look at the color. And from that moment on, from the moment I drove it off the lot, I kept seeing beige Toyota Camrys everywhere. Have you ever had that experience?
Yes, that happens all the time.
That's the ARAS. The ARAS is readjusting the filter because now that it knows that you're focusing on beige Toyota Camrys, it's going to show you every time a beige Toyota Camry's in the area. And the same thing happens in a wide variety of other things. So if, for instance, you are you like to take nature walks and you see a cardinal and you love seeing the cardinal, you get really excited about it. Well, your ARAS is now going to fine-tune the filtering so that anytime there's a cardinal around, it's going to show you the cardinal. The same pattern happening over and over again.
Yeah.
And the reason it does this is because we have so much sensory information. Forget about technology, just sensory information interacting with the environment. We have so much data coming in through our five senses that if we did not have a filter in place, we would literally be autistic. That's what autism is. An autistic person is someone who doesn't have that filter, and so they have this barrage of data coming in that overwhelms their ability to handle it. Yeah. So my theory here is that it's quite possible that when you're having a panic attack, the ARAS is in some way overloaded, or has been put out of commission for a moment, or is filtering so much stuff and is allowing so little through that basically you have nothing to process. You understand what I mean? It's like all the stimuli have been turned off all at once.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And that raises
shut down.
That raises an interesting possibility, because if that's the case, our ARAS is reprogrammable. I mean, you do it when you buy that new car. All of a sudden, you've reprogrammed it to let the new cars come in. So, and this is where I'm kind of perhaps going off the rails where medical community is concerned, but I wonder if perhaps you can start retraining your filtering mechanism to train on stuff that you want to filter on, and thereby eliminate panic attacks because you're building a filtering system.
Well, see that I think where you're losing a little bit towards the end, because I was on board, but where I think is that,
I was too,
is that the how do I put this? It kind of like the fear or whatever thoughts are coming to you aren't necessarily from your peripheral. Does that make peripheral?
So sure. Fears are always born inside. Yeah.
Right, but I could be at the grocery store and I could have a really, really bad thought about a family member of mine. Mm-hmm. Something's going to happen. You know what I mean? So that's where I kind of my break from the maybe the sensory information. But I wanted to make a point that was aligned with your point, Walt, is that I believe that filtering is very important, and that's and we're going to talk to my brother here in a little bit, but that's something that he was able to do because to give a quick background, he was diagnosed with anxiety and a panic disorder at a very young age, very like 8th grade or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. But because of the way that, and this is not an easy thing, right? Especially at that young age, but over years of filtering the way that you look at this disability, right? And I put that in air quotes because for those that are not watching that are listening, because, and this is a theory of mine, that humans are all so different, right? And I think that that's on purpose, right? Thousands of years ago when we were hunting and gathering, we couldn't all be hunters. We couldn't all be gatherers, right? We had to have specific skills, and I think that the human body is as amazing as it is very limited. And so for somebody like him who was diagnosed with anxiety and a panic attack, well, as part of that, and I don't know he can explain this better than me, but it's like it's kind of a cocktail of mental illness, right? But there's a lot of positive things in those, that mental illness that he has been able to lean on and, kind of use it to his benefit, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So yeah, he has anxiety, but he's also super obsessive. And, a lot of people will take that as a negative, but when you're super obsessive into something productive, well, now you have a different story. And so I think that's kind of where, I kind of was jumping on board there with you, Walt.
And I know I was putting out something that was fairly controversial, I'm sure. The reason I put it out there is because it aligns with the basic theories of the law of attraction and being a deliberate creator. Because if you want to deliberately attract something into your life, you train yourself to focus in a new way on that thing and make it in a very positive way and apply positive feelings
Right.
to it, and then you draw it into your life. Well, that's a form of reprogramming. And
Right.
so it just
Well,
makes me wonder how much effort, not effort, but how much, if someone puts the time in to reprogram themselves who is habitually experiencing panic attacks, I wonder if there's going to be a reduction in the panic attacks because they've trained their minds to focus on what they want and not on what they don't want.
Yeah. So, and that's where it was a disagree and agree. So it's I don't know that you can necessarily change that programming, but I do think that you can change the filter in the way you look at it and then use it to your benefit. That's my point. Is I don't know if you can necessarily change the physiology, but you can definitely change the way in which you use it, or instead of letting it use you. I guess that's my
Yeah.
Wait, you mentioned how your brother has the ability to really focus in on one thing, like I don't remember what the term was you used, but it's like tunnel vision. Like you focus on just that one thing.
Yeah.
It's almost obsessively.
Hyper-focus.
Yeah, and that's actually a benefit. That's a very strong benefit. Because if you want to attract something into your life, you don't want to be focusing on the wrong stuff. You want to have that hyper focus so that you're on the thing that you want. So that's actually a good thing. I suspect that somebody who has that going on is actually in a pretty good place for taking control of the situation, taking control of their panic attacks, just because they've developed that ability to focus as a coping mechanism, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I think that it's still, very, very difficult. I think it just comes from, and also not a lot of people, because a lot of people have these, what I would call benefits, but a lot of people don't look at them as benefits, right? They only see their disability, or they only see, to your point, right? And this is where I'm agreeing with you, is that little thing is very important because your perception is your reality, right? And so if you see this is going to hinder me, or if you're in that mindset, that could take you in a completely different place. And that's all filtering also.
Absolutely.
What do I see out of any situation?
Right.
Oh, is it this or is it the other thing? And the more you focus on the positive things, the more you see the positive things in the negative, not just in, maybe a disability, but, maybe in a situation. It's just a good life, thing to kind of reprogram, in general. But
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you guys are ready, I wanted to have him join real quick.
Yeah,
for a couple
sure.
Minutes, see if we can ask him some questions.
Bring him on.
Bring him in.
All right, let me text him real quick.
All right.
All right, let's just wait for him for a second here. But yeah, so that's why I really wanted to have him on the show, because I think it's important. Like we talked about our experiences, manifesting work and life and these other things. I think, we talk about it and this is theory, but when you kind of talk to somebody who has gone through the struggle and has come out of the other side, you can start to make parallels and you can kind of find the lessons from that.
No
Hey,
doubt.
Gabriel.
Yeah.
How's it going, guys?
Hey,
Hey, Gabriel.
thanks for
How's it
joining
going?
us. Thanks for coming
Walt
on.
and Alyx. Welcome to the Daily Dose of Happy show here on LOA Today.
Nice.
So have you been listening on the Facebook Live?
I was unable. No, I didn't know
Oh,
where we're at. I was unable to join that.
So I was just giving them a little bit of background as far as that you were diagnosed with panic and anxiety disorders very early.
Mm-hmm.
What was it, eighth grade? You said
You started, about 8th grade.
started around there.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about how changing the way that you see disability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or and I put that in air quotes. And me and Gabriel talk about this a lot. But how you were able to kind of use that or turn it into a positive, later on, and how that went. So kind of start with what was it like? Because we talked to Alyx and she kind of gave us her view, and I think this is very similar to what you were going through. But 8th grade, you're in school. What does that feel like?
I think the hardest part, and that's what I usually describe to a lot of people, the hardest part with the whole situation is kind of if you have a cold, you have symptoms like, oh, I have a cough, stuffy nose, and you kind of know what it is, or sore throat, and it all ties back. But at that stage, I felt fine, I was perfectly good, and one day, kind of hit me out of nowhere. And there was a feeling of, kind of feeling suffocated, kind of feeling everybody's looking at me, and like all of these things at once almost comes like a heart attack, right then and there. And that was the hardest thing, is not being young and not understanding, am I the only one who feels like this? What's going on with me? And not having kind of that idea. That was probably the hardest part. But like you said, I do believe that, everything not only happens for a reason, but it kind of ties back into a blessing in my life. And I feel like that would have never happened if I never came to accept that that was a part of who I was. Instead of thinking it as a negative thing, I took it as, hey, this is negative, but I'm going to use this as a stepping stone to something positive.
Right. Because like you really, at that point, you have no choice, right? This is you. This is what you have. Yeah. So you you can either go one way or the other. So talking about that, as far as, I think it's funny that you didn't hear them, but Walt and Alyx both described it as having a heart attack. It's very, it's very funny that everybody who has kind of gone through that has felt that same thing. But talk us through how you got, and kind of in a brief way, but how you got diagnosed, and then how that led to you kind of coming out of school. Because I think that Alyx was just talking about how her anxiety had led her to, she had a hard time at a grocery store, so she didn't go to the grocery store anymore. And that spiraled kind of into not leaving the house really. And I know that you had similar feelings about that. But then also kind of like how you fell into kind of what you fell into.
Yeah. So it started for me with school. School was a big part. And, I think the biggest part of where that led to was, I would go to school and I'd feel fine, and then when things got kind of hot and heavy, I was somebody who was very talkative, had a lot of people kind of eyes on me, so I felt like that created an anxiety, and then kind of like you were saying about her, it kind of grows. It's like a feeling that grows. So one day I wasn't feeling right, and the next day it would get worse, and I never knew exactly what it was. Luckily, my dad had been through certain things, so he kind of, when I expressed my feelings, he was able to help me out and tell me what I was going through, and that led to, going to doctors and figuring. But as far as the school part, it became, going to school was hard. It was focusing in class. It was too much for me to handle. And then it would go from having a hard day to waking up and trying to avoid the hard day. So maybe I didn't have anxiety at the time, but the thought of going to school where I just experienced anxiety created that anxiety. So it was like I said, it would add up and it would build up on top of each other.
Right. Alyx, did you have does that resonate with you at all? Maybe you weren't.
That's the exact thing that happened
at the grocery store. But now you think about, I have to get groceries. What am I going to do? And then maybe that causes anxiety at that point, right?
Yeah. It's exactly what happens. It's crazy.
But yeah. So and then kind of talk us. I'm kind of trying to lead you more into you ended up getting homeschooled, right? And kind of talk to us about that, kind of, because that's where I'm trying to draw the parallel, right? It was Alyx kind of got that. It almost happened the same way. She's like, oh, I don't want to leave, and then for you, it was like, okay, now it's more comfortable to be homeschooled, and kind of talk us through that and how you got into the 2K.
So one of the big things I want to bring up as well as being with the homeschool is I'm actually in an abnormal psychology class right now, so I'm actually learning a lot about what I went through when I was younger, which is kind of like eye-opening. One thing that I noticed that's happening a lot, and this is actually something I resonate with now, is ADHD is being very like a lot of people that are getting diagnosed with ADHD are being misdiagnosed because
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the anxiety. So for me, I always thought I had ADHD because I couldn't focus in school. I was had trouble retaining information. I also I would have like lapses in memory or I would lose things and I was very unorganized. But I learned today or recently that that's also the exact same diagnosis and symptoms of anxiety. Not being able to
Right.
focus because I was in class and I was getting this information, but as the teacher talked to me, I had thousands of thoughts in my head going on. Oh, is this okay? Am I all right? Or who's looking at me? What's going on? So I wasn't able to focus, not because I had ADHD, but because I had thousands of other thoughts going in my mind at the time. So
Right.
that was probably the main reason school was so difficult for me. So then from then on, I got like in contact with counselors and stuff, and they suggested homeschooling. Homeschooling helped a lot because it got rid of that pressure of performing right now and gave me
Mm.
the kind of the ability to, okay, I'm not feeling good right now. Let's focus on feeling better and then school after. And the school didn't have that aspect. I couldn't walk out the class and say, I'm gonna take an hour off, be back when I
Yeah.
feel better. So that helped
Right.
with my anxiety as well as being not being like, oh, I have to perform right now, which they kind of bounced off of each other. Um,
So real quick, so we talk about on the
mhm,
show, feeling is very important to
mhm,
being able to manifest, and you got to be in a good
yeah.
energy, good feeling. So how did you? Um, so you dropped maybe the responsibility that you had, and you focused on your
Mhm.
feeling. So how did you? For those listening, how did you kind of get to that good feeling? How did you get out of the feeling maybe that you were in? What were some of the tricks that you used to get in good spirits?
The the most successful one in my entire life that I've done with when I'm in either small anxiety, big anxiety, close to panic, just not feeling 100% is something called grounding. So
Okay.
for me, my biggest problem is thoughts. I'll have thousands of racing thoughts. So
Right.
there's times when I'm thinking of something and somebody could even talk to me, and it seems like I'm not interested in what they're saying, or leave me alone because I'm trying to like think. I have too much
Right.
going on. But grounding is a great technique that I use. It helped me till this day. So what it is I will tell myself, say I start getting anxiety, I start thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get my homework done. Oh my God, I have to wash my car. Am I going to do this in time? I have to clean my house. All of these things going on. I say, okay, Gabriel, ground yourself. And what that means is I'll do different things. So I'll say, name 5 red things. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll have to think, okay, fire trucks are red. What else? Licorice, crayons. And that process of making my mind think of something, what's something red or something, what's favorite kind of foods, those things. Now I'm focusing my mind on a specific thing. So I don't have room to be thinking about my worries because my mind's concentrated on that. And that kind of breaks me out of that overwhelming feeling.
Right.
Hmm.
Um, so ground, yeah, that's a good one. What
Yeah.
about doing hobbies, those kind of things, doing things that you like to
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, so that's actually how I got into the gaming. So hobby for me was always playing basketball, watching sports and stuff. But at the time, my time was basically during school, so I can't hang out, with my friends. Let's go play basketball. That wasn't an option. One thing I always liked doing was playing video games since I was young. Video games was kind of an escape, and that's kind of what got me. So I started playing this. It's called 2K basketball. It's basically a basketball like simulation game, and I just played that over and over. And a lot of people thought, oh, you're just playing, because you're like not going to school just so you can play video game. But for me, it was actually an escape, similar to grounding. Uh, my brother always noticed this is that when I was actually playing the game, half the time I wasn't even playing. I was looking at numbers and shoes and different players and how their statistics were. And that focus, that precision on that certain subject took away the worry of, man, I'm not feeling good today. So that was kind of my escape. I would sit down for hours in a row, and then when I was finished playing the game, I felt free. I felt because I wasn't spending the whole day kind of concentrating on, oh, this is bad or this is so. And that's kind of what we talked about before, it being a stepping stone. If it wasn't for me not being able to go to school, all these negative things, if I were to focus on that, then I would have never gotten anywhere. But being able to say, okay, yeah, this is part of my life, but I'm going to use it now to focus and kind of use it, my escape, to also be something that helps me. I ended up playing the game so much that I actually got recruited basically when I was a freshman to play professionally on a team.
Wow.
And those teams competed for huge prizes. Certain years would go from millions of dollars to hundreds of thousands to huge tournaments. And it's crazy because there would be times when I would be severely anxious, like I could barely handle having conversations, and I would sit down and play, and it was like freedom. It was like putting goggles on, not seeing anything else but the game. And that expanded to me growing and becoming better and better, and kind of that adapted to that helped my anxiety. I would play a tournament game and win, and now not only did I escape but I also had the positivity of helping a group of people reach a goal. We won today, and I was part of that, So I wasn't thinking, oh man, my anxiety made me stay home from school today. No, my anxiety helped my team get a win and put us in a better position for everybody to succeed. And that was a game changer for me.
Hey, Gabriel.
Yeah,
let me ask this question. Gabriel, this is Walt. Your story fascinates me on a number of different levels. Mm-hmm. One level, and I'm really curious to know how you're going to answer this one. To what extent do you think it's important for you to be doing activities and focusing on things that you want to focus on rather than what somebody else wants you to focus on, such as a parent, a teacher, an administrator, mm-hmm. an employer, or something like that? To what extent do you think that is important?
I think it's very important. And that's something, like I said, I'm still young. I'm 22 years old, but I feel wise beyond my years because I learned that from an early point. If I was focused on what people around me wanted, work, school, friends, then my anxiety would never have gotten better because by expectation, I was homeschooled. Why aren't you, oh, you're sad or you're anxious, why aren't you at school? If I was to feed into that, then I would have a different picture of myself. I'd be focused on, oh man, I have to do these things for these people. And when I kind of got rid of that pressure, it alleviates. I mean, you feel so much better. My mm-hmm. worries were, let me get my school done for me, not for my parents, not for these people. I don't care if it takes 5 years, 6 years. If I get it done, I'm happy in my own progress. And at the same time, okay, I'm playing video games and I should be new, but this was something that it didn't matter if it was to make money or to please anybody. It was for me to feel better, and me feeling better is more important to me than what anybody else had in line for my whole picture or whatever you call it.
I believe you. Yeah. In fact, your story reminds me of a school based in the Boston, Massachusetts area called the Sudbury Valley School. Mm-hmm. It's a very unusual school in that the students are in complete control of their day. They don't have curricula. They don't have required classes or anything mm-hmm. like that. So they spend all their day doing just stuff that they want to do. A lot of kids play video games. Video games are big. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite mm-hmm. stories that comes out of that school is the story of a kid. The school is located on a 6-acre property that used to be, I think it was actually a nunnery, believe it or not. But they have 2 mm-hmm. or 3 main buildings and a lot of outside area. There's a pond. There's all kinds of area for doing all kinds of stuff. And this one kid, for a 3-year period or something like that, every single day he'd go to the school with some fishing gear, go down to the pond and fish all day long. And he did that all year long. To the point where every year that they start the new school year, his father would come in, talk to the top staff member, say, my kid he went fishing last year. That's all he ever did. Mm-hmm. And the staff member would have to remind him, this is the way the school works. That's what our model is. You let the kid follow mm-hmm. their own thing, and they'll get there. And no one really knew what he was doing other than the fact that he was fishing. Well, one day he shows up and talks to the main building and talks to one of the staff members and says, I want to learn how to use a computer. And they said, well, as far as we know, you don't even know how to read. So, how are you going to learn to use learn to use a computer? He says, oh, I know how to read. And they said, well, where did you learn how to read? When I was fishing. And they
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, well, with a computer, it's also helpful to learn and know how to do math if you want, especially because you said you want to do some programming. You got to know some math. Oh, I know math. Well, where did you learn
Yeah.
math? When I was fishing. And that's what I was thinking of when you were telling your story about how you're
Yeah.
learning these things while you're playing the video game. I mean, you were basically an
Yeah. And
exemplification of
Yes.
that.
And for me, it's almost like if you're forced to go to this place that makes you uncomfortable to learn, then maybe you're not going to be adapted. You're not going to enjoy learning, and then you're not going to be able to want to continue to learn.
Hmm.
It's almost like if
Yes.
every time you did a math problem, someone, smacks you in the back of the head, you're never going to want to do math problems.
Yeah.
But if
So
someone
true.
gives you but if someone gives you that positive like reinforcement, like here's a cake for doing 100 math problems, I might sit there and do math problems all day. So it's all about being in a comfortable environment, and that's how I felt that I learned, and I feel like I don't regret being homeschooled over regular school because it was my way, and for me it worked. And maybe if I did another way, I would have been in a different situation, and for me that wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think you did the right thing, actually. And kudos to your
Yeah.
parents and your support system for recognizing that was the right way for you to go, because
Yeah, that
that
was
would that
big.
allowed
Yeah.
you to flourish in the way that you needed to flourish, and allowed you to
Yeah.
focus on what you needed to focus on, and allowed you to pursue what you needed to pursue. It was about what you needed to do, and
Yeah,
that's where
exactly.
it all starts. That's where the power is, in focusing on what you need.
Yeah.
So yeah, good for you and good for them.
Yeah, thank you.
So those are my questions, Carlos. I'll let you continue. You're doing a great job as the interviewer, by the way. So go ahead.
Oh, thank you. No, I just wanted to really show, because I know, obviously him being my brother, I know his story very well. And I just wanted to show that through the law of attraction, sometimes, and I think we've spoken to maybe not on this show, but on the Friday show, but we've spoken a lot about sometimes the best way to use the law of attraction is to get out of your own way.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like trying to force the universe you'll always, feel blocked. But if you kind of get out of your own way, the pieces for your life will kind of unravel for you, right? And I think that's a great example is, oh man, I have to be homeschooled. Okay, well, I'm very obsessive about this game. And to your point, Walt, about that school, is what I think is when you don't give people, that structure and that direction, people gravitate towards what they're passionate about, right? And
Yes.
you look at all the people that are very successful in anything, in comedy, and they do things because they're passionate first, and the money, the accolades, all that stuff comes afterwards, right? And so you look at somebody like Gabriel, who was homeschooled by no choice of his own, right? But then he took this thing that he was very passionate about, and with that obsession that I talked about earlier, he had this, obsessive thing that came with that cocktail of, mental illness, was able to not only let him play the game, but be the best in the game. So he hasn't and he's a humble guy, but he became he's in the Hall of Fame for that league, and he became, the MVP of the league. I mean, not only just playing, but playing at a super high level. And, through that, again, manifested, and I'll let Gabby tell the rest of the story, but kind of if you can go into what that ended up becoming. And hold on.
Yeah.
We have like 15 minutes, so
I'll try to do brief.
tight break.
I got you. So, like you said, though, with the forcing, with the forcing and trying to make things happen the way you want, I did that. Even with the game, I was, like he said, I set scoring records. I scored 60 points in halves. I did like crazy things. But one thing I couldn't accomplish was winning the championship at the end. I think I did 3 or 4 years in a row, and I was forcing it, and I was like, oh, I could win so much money. And every time I lost, I got devastated. I'm like, I'm the best person. How isn't this working? And it was because I was trying to force it, and I never understood, like, how am I so good, and all these things are happening, and I can't win. And then my dad actually was the one who says, maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe this isn't your time. Not because I didn't need to win or because I wasn't good, but maybe I win all that money and I go down a path I'm not supposed to go down. And I couldn't see it. I couldn't
Right.
see it. I couldn't see it. I said, no, I should have won. I could have had money. I could have done this. I could have done that. And he said, no, just like wait until you see what comes from it. And I ignored him. No, I'm mad. And I was mad for months. And then they asked me again, do you want to play? And I said, no, I'm never playing. Forget that. I've done 4 years. I can't win. What's the point? And I talked to, so the guy who ran the league, his name was Michael Sepso, and he basically is in charge of mass tournaments. He's a director of sprint, does lots of different things, works with NASCAR. He was asking me like, oh, what's, and I was just, no, I can't do this. And he said, oh, I had this opportunity, I feel like it's very good for you. And that basically led to me getting an internship with EA Sports, which is basically the biggest, Madden, all these games they make. They
make the game
are everywhere. Yeah, they make all kinds of.
Yeah, my nephew's a programmer there, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did that and basically gave me an internship to not only help me move forward in life, but also was able to pay for my school. So from not being able to even go to high school and worrying about am I even going to graduate high school to getting these internship that's going to basically be a scholarship for a university. It's a whole, I would have never seen it if I complained about being homeschooled. I would have never seen it if I never started playing the game. I would have never seen it if I never, questioned myself for losing. So, and that has led to, till this day, I'm not into the gaming as much as I am, but that, that education that I got basically for free because of them has led to me being basically a year away from, being a clinical laboratory scientist and things that I could have never imagined I would have ever done at the age of, 14 and 15 when I was struggling.
You hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Like I said, that's so far off from what you, or I guess the path seems pretty far off from what you wanted, right? You're like, I just want to go to school. I just want to get a degree. And the universe was like, well, yes, but maybe not the way that everybody else does it, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
Exactly.
Rode that wave, and again, it's like all those things and accolades and accomplishments are great, and they're a part of your story now, right? And you can, like you said, you and I agree with that too. It's like I think about that also. Like, what if you're 18 and you win $300,000, right? Like with mental illness, like who knows? Like, what if you binge?
Yeah, it could go very wrong very fast.
You can go into drugs or what? Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you would, but I'm saying, and I talk about this all the time on the show, is just being ready for your opportunity, or being ready for what you're asking the universe for.
Yeah.
So sometimes you ask the universe for something, but you're not ready to receive it, and you got to go through some things in order to build, those tools or that toolbox to allow you to be successful later.
And it sounds, I always say this recently, it sounds pretty crazy, but I believe I'm most grateful for is my mental illness. The thing I believe is the thing I think my superpower is my mental illness. And the reason I say that is because not only has it taught me adversity, dealing with stress. When there's a stress, I'm at work and there's 10 customers and you're yelling, most people panic. I said, dude, I had thousands of voices in my head, so this is not But beyond that, kind of just being able to accept it and, not think of it as a stigma has let me be open and kind of, get rid of my anxiety. I could tell people, I have anxiety and not feel like, they're going to, because I'm, I love myself and I care and I know my truth. And that also helps with being able to being open. I can't tell you how many people I've just had conversations with and feel like I've been able to help them because luckily I had a great support system. But not only that, like I said, I've been through the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and I'm lucky to be where I am today. But I know that people throughout my life are going to be on that same wave. So me being able to help them through that makes me feel better than, other people who just never had that experience to be able to help.
Right.
I think this is also a great reminder. Your story is a great reminder that no matter what we go through in life, it's all good. Because you went through what seemed to be bad stuff, but look at the good that came out of it. I mean, you had to struggle pretty bad through some stuff, and that struggle turned into a springboard to stuff you didn't even know was going to be there.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I mean
And
it's kind of crazy.
yeah, one memory I always have is my brother, Carlos. I remember one night, I think maybe, I couldn't even tell you the date, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We're at a family party, everything's going good, everyone's having a fun time, and boom, I had, anxiety, panic. I was super uncomfortable. I had to leave the party to go outside, and I was full crying, and then I felt horrible because now I have a crowd around me. I feel like, oh man, I ruined the party,
Yeah.
My brother steps me aside and he says, "Hey, see that little dot on that brick?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's what's going on right now. You see all these other bricks around it? That's your life. So don't let this little, this little episode, this little night affect not only the rest of tonight, but the rest of your life. You have so much more life to live." And that kind of opened my eyes to, if I have a bad day, tomorrow might be the best day. If I have the best day, tomorrow might be a bad day. And not to judge, like I said, before I see the result. If I would have judged and said, yeah, I'm never playing this game again, not talking to anybody, I would have never been in the position I am today. So I feel like that's kind of, like you guys talk about, the law of attraction is never thinking something's the best, never thinking something's the worst. You might break your arm and, oh my God, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. But the next day they might, the military might call and say, hey, everybody with good arms, you got to go to war. Wow, that's the best.
Right.
That's the best day ever because I have a broken arm. So, everything I believe happens not only for a reason, but to create your own path into what you believe. And I believe if you have a positive attitude and a positive outlook, then you have positive results. Even if you have negative on the way, as long as you keep that spirit of being, everything's going to be good, things will turn out in your favor.
It reminds me of a story that my Tuesday morning co-host Cindy Chavez tells about, I think it's a Chinese farmer who one day a flood comes and wipes out all of his crops. And the townspeople say, oh, what bad luck. And the farmer says, oh, good luck, bad luck, who knows. And they end up building a bridge to get across his land, so he ends up having a nice, easy way to get into town. They say, oh, what good luck, you get to do a bridge out of this. He says, good luck, bad luck, who knows. And he goes through a series of ups and downs like this. Every time they say, wow, what good luck or what bad luck, and his response is always the same, good luck, bad luck, who knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how I think you have to take things is with a grain of salt. This was something, and I learned that from like I said, my dad. I remember days where we'd be late to school, like a pop tire, or we'd stop at the gas station. And I'm such a perfectionist because of my obsessiveness that I would be like, oh no, I have to be there at this time because it would make me feel uncomfortable. And I would, one little thing, or we're going to the beach and it's raining, and I would ruin my whole day. And I would say, oh my God, horrible, everything's gone wrong. And I learned that, hey, and this is what he said, maybe it's raining because you go to the beach and you get bit by a shark. Maybe we have a flat tire because if we would have left on time, maybe you get in a car accident. So never let things affect what's to come because that kind of negativity will only bring you down. Keep a positive attitude and positive things show up.
Absolutely.
I agree.
All right, Gabriel. I appreciate you coming on. Again, we wanted to get your perspective. We only have a few minutes here, but thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Unless you guys have any other quick questions before I let him go.
Just one question.
No, I'm good.
Gabriel, just one question. What's your big takeaway from your experience? What's the one thing that you keep in mind more than anything else?
Probably just that, like I said, that I'm grateful for the situations, for everything that happened. Before, like I said, I would take everything as, why me? And now I take everything as thank God it was me,
Very cool.
And that's a big adjustment that it took a lot of growing to be able to achieve. But like I said, I believe it's my superpower now.
Good for you. Congratulations. And thank you for coming on to the show and telling us about your story, because that's a great story. Very inspiring.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me.
All right.
No problem.
And while we do have a couple minutes left, I want to make sure I get our promo messages in. If you're not yet a subscriber to the podcast, what are you waiting for? You can see how good the content is, right? Become a subscriber. The instructions are in the description wherever you're happening to see the show right now. If you don't see instructions on how to do it, there's usually links there. But if you don't see links, just go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net. We got big links there for you to click. You can hardly miss them. And then once you're a subscriber, make sure you share on social media the fact that you're listening to and watching the LOA Today show and getting your daily dose of happy. And so with those two thoughts in mind, I want to come back to my two main co-hosts here. Carlos, I'm going to come to you last. Alyx, I want to go to you first. You were sitting there listening to a story that I'm sure is very familiar to you. But what's your take? I mean,
Yes.
does this, first of all, does it affect you in any way with your experience? Does it resonate, and does it affect you? And second of all, what's your takeaway?
I'm like where Gabriel's story went. I'm like in the middle of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I took my obsession with TV and I created a Facebook page and then got hundreds of followers and then turned that into a podcast. And then, so that's what, I'm doing the same thing with my obsession, but my obsession comes from autism. So, it's a whole different, I'm not going to say mental illness because it's a blessing and a curse in disguise. So, But yeah, I'm in the middle of Gabriel's story right now. So I feel exactly what he's saying.
Do you have a takeaway that's really resonating with you today? Like, I hadn't thought of this particular thing, but I'm glad that he said it, or I thought of it, or somebody brought it up.
No, not really. It's just everything just resonates with me.
Everything does.
Like I'm just like, yes, exactly.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good. And especially if you're in the middle of it, it's almost unfair to ask you what's your conclusion because you're in the middle of it. So it's really a little bit early to ask for a conclusion.
There's never a conclusion.
So, okay.
Tell my deathbed what my conclusion is. That's what it is.
Oh, okay. All right. So note to self. Yeah. And then, okay. So Carlos, now we're gonna finish up with you. So what's your takeaway? We started off talking about anxiety. You very carefully defined the difference between what some people call anxiety that's really just stress under normal situations, and then differentiate that from like what your brother goes through, what Alyx has gone through, what others have gone through. So what's your big take on the whole situation after having this conversation?
Yeah, first of all, to Alex's point, I use mental illness, in air quotes and very sparingly, because like to my brother's point, it's at least in our family, we see those things as superpowers, and so I think Kanye West does as well.
Okay.
I also think
go.
I think that Gabriel has more control over his superpower than Kanye West.
Yeah.
Right. So he might be a little rogue there. No. But honestly, it's just I just wanted to really have him on to tell that story in order to let people know a couple things. One is that your limitations or what you feel are your limitations don't define you. Right? They're there to steer your path, not to form your conclusion. Right? So, like I said, he ended up going to the university, all the stuff that he ultimately wanted to do. Again, it just took him in a different path, and a better path, honestly. If you ask him, or if you really look from outside in, you get school paid for, got to work at a company that hardly anybody gets to work at. Walt can probably attest to this, saying, you have I think you said a nephew that works there. So, but it's just like, video game. Anybody who plays video games would love an opportunity to work at this place, right? And he was able to do that. So yeah, and I think he made a really good point, and this is something that I talk about often, is that whatever negative thing you're going through, there's a reason for it, right? And it's there to build you up. It's there to kind of create that toolbox, that tool belt, for you to be able to handle this huge thing that you're asking the universe for, right? So
absolutely. And by the way, I want to let you know we're also resonating with the audience. We have a couple of comments, and I forgot to check comments, but I want to make sure that I touch on these because they're both really good. Let's see. It's I hope I pronounce it right. Doug and Cheryl. I think it's Doug and Cheryl. I suffer from anxiety every day. The reason I can't work, so I pray for abundance every day. And then Harley wrote, I remember those feelings of anxiety in school, and I still have anxiety. That is why I homeschooled both of my kids, so they would not have to experience this. So two more people that your brother's story really resonated with in a big way. So thank you for suggesting the topic, the two of you, and thank you for bringing it in. We'll have to explore it further at another time because we're kind of out of time for today, but it's been great. And I look forward to talking to you guys in a week.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. And we'll see you all next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.